Welcome to another episode of Lady Lexi's podcast that we're going to rename and call it My Two Cents. So let's start with Caitlyn Jenner today. I want to talk a little bit about her and her absurd view on sports. Caitlyn Jenner is a decathlon who won back in, I believe, the 1978 Olympics. She won a decathlon event. And of course, we all know that she went and she lived her life right up until about 2014 when she restarted her transition. And so she restarted her transition. And while I think that's wonderful, her views are completely obstructed. She's a Republican. All right, we can start there. And, well, I don't really have anything good to say about her. You know, listen, I support Caitlyn Jenner only because of the fact she's a trans woman. Other than that, I don't endorse her. I don't support her. I don't want anything to do with her fucking views because her views are skewed. They're shit and they're crap. Caitlyn Jenner started her transition again in 2014. A year later, on February 17th, 2015, she killed Kim Howe, a 69-year-old woman, because she crashed her car and then blamed the paparazzi for making her drive that way. She was ordered to pay $800,000 and got no jail time whatsoever. Not only did she not get jail time, but a year later, in 2016 of June, Betty, let me rewind that. Not only did she not get jail time, but in 2015, she was named Women of the Year by Glamour magazine for being a trans champion and advocating for trans people, or for being a role model of trans people. A role model? She fucking killed somebody and then blamed somebody else and then didn't do any jail time, paid $800,000 and swept that shit under a fucking rug. Okay. So after getting 2015's Women of the Year, she went on to June of 2015, just 3 months later, on the cover of Vanity magazine, proclaiming, "Call me Caitlyn." July of 2015, she accepts an ESPY award for courage. She gets an ESPY award for courage in being a trans champion, Women of the Year, but she killed somebody back in February. And they rewarded her for it. Wow. Okay. And then she gets her own show, I Am Kate. Ran for 2 seasons and says, I want to move on to something else. June 2016, she completes in a golf tournament, the Women's Pro-Am Golf Inspiration Tournament, and wants to represent ladies playing in this tournament. Here's my problem. She wants to represent ladies. Okay, great. She's a lady. She should represent ladies. But she's also Republican. She claims that biological boys should not play in sports. But yet, she wants to represent ladies in a ladies' invitational in 2016. 2021, she had a very unsuccessful run for governor of California. And then whined about losing. So now, the Republican Caitlyn Jenner says that biological boys should not play sports because there's an inherent advantage. But there isn't one. There's no advantage for biological boys. They're not biological boys. They're fucking trans women and trans men. Caitlyn Jenner, if you ask me, is not a good representation of the trans community. She doesn't represent what trans stands for. You can't be a Republican and be against trans people. You just cannot. We've had this discussion in the last podcast. But her views are very, very skewed. Caitlyn Jenner has a huge voice. She has all this money. She has a TV show. She has publicity. Why wouldn't she use her voice for good? The woman kills somebody in 2015, gets away with it, gets Woman of the Year, gets an ESPY award, gets a TV show, and then 5 years later, when she's bought her entire fucking transition through money, says, well, you know what? I want everybody to like me, and so because I want everybody to like me, I'm going to be Republican, and I'm going to stand against all trans people. I don't want to use women's spaces. I don't want to do this. I don't think that, trans kids should play, and I don't want to be a role model for anybody. Because basically right now, she's a role model for nobody. Caitlyn cares about fucking Caitlyn. She is all up in Lia Thomas's shit. She even got a job at Fox News. I should call it fake news. We'll call it fake Fox News here on My 2 Cents. So she gets a job on fake Fox News. They're paying her now for her to have a voice, and it's a negative opinion of trans people. She's shitting on Lia Thomas. Well, here's some interesting thoughts on Lia Thomas. Lia Thomas is not the first person to play in the NCAA. The NCAA has allowed people to compete since 2010. There's been 32 different trans people who have competed in the NCAA since 2010. Yet, Lia Thomas wins a Division I champion and says, well, I guess now there's a biological advantage because she wins. But if you look at the previous times for 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18, 19, she wasn't even fast enough to win any of those. 2020, because of COVID, there wasn't any competition. 2021, she competed after taking hormones for over 2.5 years. And she barely won the event by 0.47 seconds, coming in 5th place in the 500 free. How is she dominating anything? She won by 0.47 seconds. That's roughly 0.47 seconds. Let me see it again. Ready? Her time was 4 minutes. I have the information right here, incidentally enough. Her time was 4 minutes 43:24. The women's record is 4:24:06, set by Katie Ledecky back in 2017. In 2014, the winning time was 4:32:53. In 2015, it was 4:31:54. In 2016, it was 4:31:33. In 2017, the record was set by Katie Ledecky at 4:24:06. In 2018, it was 4:26:57. In 2019, it was 4:31:34. Again, Lia Thomas's record was 4:43:24. She wasn't fast enough to win in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, or 19. These were races all run by biological women. Lia Thomas was not the fastest woman There were women. I mean, she only won by 1.7 seconds. But during those years of 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, she would have lost to all cisgendered women. She wouldn't have won. She wouldn't have been fast enough to win. So why is she fast enough this year if those times are 4:32, 4:31, 4:24, 4:26, and 4:31? Well, because here's what happened. I believe that all the swimmers who didn't swim in 2020 literally didn't swim in 2020. So they couldn't train. They didn't train. They took 2020 for granted. They took it up and they didn't swim. They didn't train. They didn't practice. They didn't do anything. Which is why they couldn't win. Because they didn't have the endurance. If they'd been swimming with these times this whole time, why couldn't they do it this time? Why was Lia Thomas at 4:43.24 if she had some sort of advantage? Why wasn't she at 4:15.30? Or 4 minutes and 30 seconds for that matter? Because there's no biological advantage. In 12 years in the NCAA championships, if trans people were dominating, don't you think we'd hear about that? Don't you think we'd know something? This is why Caitlyn Jenner is bad. This is why she's bad for trans sports. This is why she's bad for trans people. Why most trans people don't like her. Again, I respect the fact that she's trans, and I'll support her for the fact she's trans, but I don't support her views. I won't stand by her views. I don't stand for her views. How can someone who's trans stand against trans? At one point, did you know Caitlyn Jenner was against gay marriage? A trans woman against gay marriage. That's like a gay man against trans people. It's absurd. If you're in the LGBTQ and you're against trans people, then you're not in the LGBTQ. At least you shouldn't be. You can't call yourself the LBD, or the LBT, or the LBG, or the LB, or the LT, or the LG. You can't shorten it. It's LGBTQ plus, LGBTQIA plus. You're a member. Support your own. It's like being in the NRA or any one of them other associations out there. AAA, whatever. You support your own. We as a people choose to listen to the facts that fake Fox News puts out or fake CNN News puts out. And we choose not to do the research ourselves. And we choose not to do the research because we haven't woken up yet. There are too many people out there that are not woke. Everybody says that woke is such a bad thing, and it's really not. When you're woke, you understand while they're saying something here and trying to get you to look here, you're not listening here, you're listening here instead. That's being woke. It's really just a matter of knowing what's actually going on. Trans women are not the fucking problem. Trans women are just the scapegoats. They want you to believe that women are frail and women are weak and women can't take care of themselves and women need those big, strong men. When that's not true. Women are just as strong as men. I'd like to believe at one time that men and women were equal in power, status, social status, decision making. But now everybody treats women like they're this frail little thing that's going to break. Why is this? When did we start teaching women that they're less than? When did we start lowering the bar? When did women stop sticking with women? We're talking about bathroom debates. We're talking about sports debates. We're talking about all these debates that include trans women that don't need to. I used to be so big as a person. Before I started my transition, I was 225 pounds. I was built like a brick shithouse. I had no neck like I do now. I had no defined, beautiful, pretty shoulders like I do now. I looked like a completely different person. But yet here we are, condemning trans women and telling us that we have some inherent advantage. Well, if that was the case, then her times would have been faster than 2014 through 2019. She's been beat by many biological women, but everybody keeps saying she has this biological advantage. The 500 free was only one event that she competed in, that she won. There were many other events that she did not make it in. But you don't hear about that because you don't choose to do the research. They say that she was 462 out of all the male swimmers. Do you know how many male swimmers there really are? There's over 11,500. To be in the top 462 is the top 5%, and that's pretty damn good. She won 2 men's tournaments in 2017. I believe she won another one in 2018. So how did she suck as a man? She was a very good swimmer as a man. But if you look statistically, her times have slowed dramatically throughout her transition. She ain't getting any faster. She's only getting slower. But all you people who aren't woke choose to not look at the facts. You want to keep saying these trans women have all these advantages, that we have bigger lung capacity and that we have bigger bone density. No doubt. No doubt. Michael Phelps had twice the lung capacity of a man, of the average man. Did we call him a cheater? No. Michael Phelps had webbed feet. Did we call him a cheater? No. Michael Phelps produced half the lactic acid of the average athlete. Did we call him a cheater? No. Michael Phelps had an extra 4-inch on each freaking hand wingspan, which allowed him to swim and get more water underneath, more pull. Did we call him a cheater? Did we disqualify him because he had a better physical advantage than any man swimming? No, we did not. Then we tried to claim that Lia Thomas was 6'1", so her height gave her an advantage. Well, Katie Ledecky is 6 feet tall. Where's the advantage? The plain and simple fact is these girls in this team didn't try hard enough. These girls in this team, on the Penn State team, they didn't swim hard enough. They didn't bother to get the endurance because they didn't practice the year before. And if they did, they didn't practice much. Because if they did, they'd be getting times like every other team the previous years. All of a sudden, biological women can't get these times now because Lia Thomas is doing it slower. And so all of a sudden it just stops? No, it doesn't stop. They stop training. They stopped working on the endurance. If anything, they should have been training with Lia Thomas, and they could have gotten better. If you watch most of the races she was in, all these swimmers kept up with her. And then they started to slow down because they didn't have the endurance. It's got nothing to do with lung capacity. It's got to do with endurance and strength. And practice. Trans women have been allowed to compete, like I said, for the last 12 years. So if trans women can supposedly dominate, why don't we have all these titles in the last 12 years? Why don't trans women hold all these titles? Why haven't these laws come into effect 12 years ago? She's not the only trans woman to ever compete in the NCAA. There's 32 others across various divisions, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, the NAIA. Where's all these champions? They don't fucking exist because trans women, trans men aren't dominating anything. When will it be okay for a trans woman to win? If Lia Thomas had come in 10th place and wasn't winning, nobody would say a word about it. But the only reason it's a problem is because she actually practiced. She actually continued to swim. She actually practiced throughout her transition so that she didn't lose too much strength. The problem is people don't understand what people who transition go through. Trans women are not cis men. Cis men would inherently beat any trans woman that has medically transitioned. A cisgendered man would crush me in competition. And I'm not afraid to say it. You people out there that talk about women, trans women in women's sports and how you don't think they should compete because they used to be men, they've been through puberty. You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. You're not looking up these facts. You're not looking up anything. You're hearing what the media is telling you without actually doing your own research. You're listening to the right-wing media. CNN, Fox News, major news stations. You're not doing your own research. You're a sheep. You have no idea what it takes to transition. You have no idea what a person transitioning experience. I started my transition. I started taking hormones April 21st, 2021. And because I started doing that, I started to get rapid muscle loss. And I got rapid muscle loss because, well, I just stopped being able to produce man muscle. It just wasn't possible. Hormones break that muscle down. And that's just one of many things that happen to trans women as we start to transition. And the problem is, most people don't understand what trans people actually go through in order to fucking transition. And it's really unfortunate. Back in 2021, this is what I looked like. Let me shrink it down for you. Oops. Back in 2000, April 21, 2021. This is what I looked like. That man is massive. Massive. I don't look anything like that man anymore. And look at me now. Compared to that man. That man was 235 pounds. I had said 225 earlier. I meant 235. That man was 235 pounds. I now weigh 170.4 pounds. I've lost all my muscle. I don't have any more fat to lose, but I've lost 65 fucking pounds. That's in 1 year. Lia Thomas was on hormones for 2.5 years. Do you think I can still do the things that that man could do? Today? A year later? No. I'm only 5 feet, 5.5 inches tall. I went from wearing a XXX women's shirt to a large women's. I wear a size 7 jean. I'm very small. You don't know what people go through to transition. And so you should really stop talking about things you don't know anything about. Nobody gave a shit about women's sports until Lia Thomas came along. But 32 other people competed in the NCAA since 2010. But you didn't hear about them because they didn't win. They didn't dominate anything. Back in 2016 in the Olympics, there was a trans woman who competed who didn't even medal. She didn't even place to medal. Nobody cared about her because she didn't place. So when is it okay for trans women to win? When? Every piece of data that we have, or any piece of data that you can find, says that trans women's strength will decrease and therefore no advantage actually exists. And let's talk about this 462 number that we keep talking about when it comes to Lia Thomas. Where did this 462 come from? It came from a letter. It came from a letter written by her teammates to the NCAA head that said, while we support Lia in all her efforts to transition, we believe that she has a biological advantage. She was 462 in the men's ranking, and now she's number one. But she's not number one. She is not number one. As a matter of fact, I can show you. So according to swimming data, SwimCloud, Thomas is ranked 36th among female college swimmers in the United States for the 2021 to 2022 season, and 46th among women swimmers nationally. According to Sports Illustrated, she has applied for law school and plans to swim at 2024 Summer Olympics. But I thought she was number one. If she's number one, why isn't she number one? I don't understand. During her last season in the NCAA, Thomas competed in the men's division in 2018-2019. There she actually ranked 554th in the 200-yard freestyle. She is now 5th in the event this year. Furthermore, the 500-yard freestyle, Thomas was 65th in the country. Now she ranked first place in the event this year. Finally, in the 1650, she is now 8th in the nation as opposed to 32nd in the men's division. But that's not a biological advantage, because if that was the case, she would be number one in all of those things. Would she? So if she was dominating these sports, she'd be, well, quite a bit. She'd be number one. And the thing about it is that she finishes 8th in the 100-yard freestyle. So she didn't even finish in the fucking top 5. But she's supposed to be number one. You know? You know, one of the records that Thomas broke has been broken 20 times since the year 2000. And so swimming records are broken all the time. And it's entirely possible that a record has been broken that many times in 2 decades. Previously, this was said it was false under the misunderstanding the claim based on the meet since 2020. They say that Thomas is the fastest swimmer in the country in her events. This is simply not true. If that were the case, she would have come in better than one. She wouldn't have come in 8th or 5th. And she wouldn't be ranked 46th among all women. These are simple numbers that you can Google just like I did. So how is she having any biological advantage if she's ranked 46th in the country? Yes, she has lost significant strength. In 2.5 years, you lose a lot of strength. I just showed you a picture of 1 year for me. I celebrate that 1 year in 7 days. People like Caitlyn Jenner are making it difficult for trans women to compete. People like Caitlyn Jenner want to do one thing, but say it's not okay for everybody else. She competed in a women's golf tournament as a woman, but says that biological boys should not compete in women's sports. What did she do? 2016, she competed in a women's golf tournament. Why is it okay for one and not okay for the other? When is it okay for trans women to win and actually win because they tried? Let me remind you again that 32 trans women and men have competed since the year 2010 in the NCAA championships, or NCAA divisions. Excuse me. But we're not dominating anything, are we? Kids have been playing all these sports for years in their little school grades, K through 12. You don't hear about them dominating because, well, they're just not. It's not happening. These are kids. The Republicans are picking on children. Anybody see anything wrong with this? They're passing states. Laws are passing states. States are passing laws everywhere that say that trans children cannot compete in these sports. But why? Did you people know that most of these trans children are on hormone blockers and have never gone through puberty? If you don't go through puberty, how do you develop any muscle? If you don't go through puberty, how do you have an advantage? Because the kids that they are playing with are actually going through puberty, and they're not on hormone or puberty blockers. And so they're getting the hormones they're supposed to have. While these trans children are getting nothing until they're 14, 15, 16 years old, they're on puberty or hormone blockers or both. And so they're not even developing at all. Where's the inherent advantage here for these children? They just want to be included. Why are we telling these children that they're not good enough? Why are we telling these children that they can't play with these kids? Why are we telling these children, we don't want you, we don't accept you? This is America. Why can't we fucking love everybody for who they are? Why do we have to judge people? You don't know these people. You don't live in their shoes. I'm for human rights. Just because you don't agree with something doesn't give you the right to decide for others. Inherently, most people support trans people. Most people are okay with people like myself and many other trans people out there. Most people are okay with trans people getting health insurance and health care and gender affirming care and everything they need. But yet there's a small percentage of you, about 35% of you, that just don't want to let people live, and you think you have a right in their decision making when in fact you don't. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it, but God damn it, mind your fucking business. Don't make decisions for other people that you don't have a stake in. It's like the whole abortion law. Great, you don't believe in abortion? Okay, don't get one. But you don't have a right to tell anybody else they can or can't do it. Doesn't matter what your little Bible book says. If you yourself don't believe, then don't do it. But you don't have a right to tell other people what they can and can't do with their bodies, period. When did we start taking that right from people? When did we start telling people how they can live their lives? When did you start thinking that what you do is better than what they do? When did you start thinking that you making decisions for them is the right thing to do? What is wrong with you, America? All these Republicans are putting these laws into place in places like Texas and Oklahoma and Indiana and North Dakota or whatever it is, South Dakota. Anybody ask for these laws? No. Nobody asked for these laws. People are just putting them in to protect them. In Utah, we spent all that fucking money. Well, you spent all that money in Utah to put in a bill for 4 children in the state. You have 4 trans kids who want to play sports in your state, and you spend $500,000 to $1 million worrying about it, voting it, writing it, taking the time to vote on it for 4 children. And your governor didn't even want to pass it, and he's a fucking Republican. In Oklahoma, they had 2 trans children that wanted to play sports. 2. In Texas, they had 3 or 4. And we're writing these laws. Why? Why are we writing these laws? Just because you don't agree with it doesn't make it so. Doesn't make it right for you to say no. Just because you don't believe in it doesn't give you the right to make it unbelievable for others. These states that have disincluded all these people, all these trans kids, trans men, trans women, do you realize what you're doing? You're causing these kids to want to unalive themselves. People in Texas are fleeing Texas because they don't want to be there because their children need this gender affirming care that Texas has outlawed and criminalized doctors to give these kids care. When did we start telling doctors what the fuck they can and can't do? When did we start telling parents how to raise their fucking children? When did the government start stepping into our homes and telling us what we can and can't do? When did the government start stepping into your doctor's office and telling your doctor what you can and can't do? Where do we draw the line as American citizens? I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent. Where do we draw the line and start saying no fucking more? When do you stop giving the government all this fucking power to do whatever the fuck it is they want to do? You people out there think just because you don't like something, you have a right to tell somebody else they can't do it. Trans rights are human rights. People's rights are human rights. Abortion rights are human rights. People have a right to do what they want to do and why and how and however they see fit it. My life doesn't affect you. Your life doesn't affect me. What makes you think I have something to say about yours? Or what makes you think you have a right to tell me how to live mine? You don't. Just like I have no more right to tell you how to live yours. We talk about bathrooms, we talk about sports, we talk about this. Did you know that 90% of people who were assaulted in the bathroom knew they were a fucking assaulter? The other 10% are random? Bet you didn't know that. If you talk to people that you know that have been assaulted, I'll bet you they knew they were assaulter. Most people do. Do you really think that trans women want to get assaulted? Or assault people in bathrooms, that's what we go in there for? No, we don't go into bathrooms to assault people. If anything, trans people get assaulted. They get harassed and belittled and thrown out. All for just trying to pee. Because we don't belong in a biological man's bathroom. Women go into the men's bathroom all the time and nobody says anything about it. But the first time a man goes into a women's bathroom, it's an uproar. But when a trans woman does it, it's still an uproar. And trans women are not men. Trans women are fucking women. My tits are fucking real. They're mine. My body can grow just like a woman's can. I have hips and a girl body just like a girl. I may not sound like a girl, but I fucking look like one. What gives you people the right? We're not mentally ill. There's nothing wrong with us. We're just fucking people. We want to live our lives and we want to do it happily. Stop making decisions for people when you don't have a stake in it. Stop making decisions for people just because you don't like something. Stop making decisions for people just because you don't agree. You don't have to. It's not your life to live. Caitlyn Jenner does shit like this. You need to stop doing shit like this. Stop listening to people like Caitlyn Jenner and start listening to the facts. Do your fucking research. Do the real research. Don't listen to what the media says. Google that shit yourself. Start thinking for yourselves, people. Because the problem isn't trans women. The problem is keeping cisgendered women in their place. The problem is teaching others that cisgendered women are these frail little things that need protection from a man. Well, you don't. You can stand up for yourself. You can fight for yourself. You can believe and make your own damn decisions. Don't tell me that women have made progress and women are less than men and whatever. No. Women took this country, or men took this country by force. Women were put down and put in the middle and told to get your asses in the kitchen. Be pregnant and barefoot and do what I tell you. Is that the type of life you want to go back to living? Because that's what they want you to do. They want you barefoot in the kitchen, taking care of your man, worrying about the kids. That's not your job. A marriage is 100-100. A marriage is everybody contributing. A marriage is equal. Not this 50-50 shit. No. You can't put half fucking work in and expect the fucking whole result. You have to put all the work in, and that's how you get a whole result. It's 100-100, not 50-50. Women are not weak. Women are not pussies. Women are not less than men. Women can do anything men can do, and then some. Women have higher strength tolerance than men. Women have better sense than men. Women can shut their emotions off. Men cannot. Women can put their emotions behind them. Women can shut their brain off and say, no, you show me a man that can shut his brain off and walk away from a woman. Doesn't happen. But a woman, when she's fed up, she will shut her brain off and walk away and never think of that man again. Women are not weak. We are not frail. We are not less than a man. We don't need men. Stop telling our little girls that they're frail. Stop telling our little girls that they're weak. Stop telling our little girls that they need a man. Stop telling our little girls when you grow up and get married. Stop telling our little girls whether they're little girls. Stop teaching these children that they have to get married and have children and do all this normal shit. You're fucking society up. Listen to your fucking kids. I wish somebody would listen to me growing up, because I wouldn't be 44 years old and be a year into my transition. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. There is no inherent advantage. And if you go and do the actual research, you'll see it for yourselves. Stop believing everything you read and start doing the research yourself. Don't take your answers off of one page. Take your answers off of 10. Watch some videos. Google things. Do your research and come to your own conclusions, people. But Lia Thomas deserves to play like everybody else. These kids deserve to play like everyone else. These kids deserve care like everyone else. Because if we start letting them get away with these laws, there's going to be more. This is the 1950s all over again. All they're doing is segregating trans kids. That's it. Back in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, it was the BIPOC community. We segregated them by color. Now you're doing it to trans people. We used to say women were crazy so men would get women off to cure their delirium. Now masturbation is normal. Gay men used to be considered a mental disease, but now we find out that it's not. Being a lesbian used to be a mental disease. Now we find out that it's not. Being trans is no different. And I will talk about that next week on My Two Cents, hosted by me, Lady Lexi. But I encourage you people to do your facts. Check your facts. Check your numbers. Do your own research before you come to a conclusion, and don't listen to these right-wing idiots. Wake up, people. Wake up and stop letting the government fool you and pull the wool over your eyes. They want you to look here while they're really doing something here. And we're just the scapegoats. Be kind to others. Until next week, this is My Two Cents with Lady Lexi. If you like what you see, like, follow, subscribe. Leave comments. I'd love to hear your input. I know I was a little all over the place. I'm getting used to these podcasts. So, we'll do better. We'll have more features. We'll have more fun stuff. But like, follow, share, subscribe. Tell your friends. And again, thank you for joining me here at My Two Cents. And I'm your host, Lady Lexi. And this is Ralph. And until next week, be kind to others. Bye, guys.